In this case, we have two largest software development companies in Virginia. The first one is Orange Computing, and the second one is BSOD, destined to compete since their inception. Both companies face off on aggressive ad campaigns to market themselves as the dominant industry player. BSOD recently created an ad that, according to Stanley Couriers, who is the CEO of Orange Computing, defamed him. Hence, Stanley and Orange Computing sued BSOD for defamation of character. In the trial, both parties will be facing off each other in court. Which company will prevail? To find the answer to that question, tune in November 2nd for the ultimate trial showdown between the two fierce rivals.
According to the Electronic Frontier Foundation, defamation is generally defined as false and unprivileged statement of fact that is harmful to someone's reputation, and published with fault, which means as a result of negligence or malice. Libel is written defamation, while slander is spoken defamation. State laws define defamations more specifically, but here in Virginia, where Stanley Couriers and Orange Inc. versus BSOD take place in, defamations has 5 major legal elements. Now, the Commonwealth of Virginia, like many other states, has recognized the elements for establishing a defamation of character suit. In order for the plaintiff to prevail in such an action, he or she must prove the following. Firstly, that the statement made by the defendant is defamatory. The statement must tend to adversely affect a person's reputation and must be a statement of fact. Expressions of opinions cannot form the basis of an action for defamation. That means the statement must hurt the plaintiff's reputation and must be a statement of fact, not opinion. And here's an example. Imagine you're playing a game of Among Us, and Purple claims, "I think Orange sus." Now here, Purple made a harmless opinion about Orange's suspicious actions. Alright, now let's see an example of a fact. Imagine you're playing a different game of Among Us, and a different Purple claims, "I saw Orange vent, he murdered White, and he is the imposter." Now here, although this is a different Purple, he's a lot smarter. Also, Purple just made a factual statement about Orange, and he must, at the end, be able to prove that point to be true. In the 2002 case held in the U.S. Supreme Court of Virginia, American Communication Network versus Williams, Chief Executive Officer Williams had originally sued the American Communication over defamatory statements regarding his work and operations at the company. The company argued that these statements were either true or opinions of Williams' work. Due to William admitting to the truth of the opinions made by the company, the court reversed the ruling in favor of the company.
2. The statement made by the defendant is of or concerning the plaintiff. He need not show that he was mentioned by name in the publication. Instead, the plaintiff satisfies the of or concerning test if he shows that the publication was intended to refer to him or be so understood by persons reading it who knew him. So basically, the statement must have intended to attack the plaintiff either by direct mention or by referring to them indirectly in a way that anyone that knew the plaintiff would understand it was referring to them. So, in the 2002 case of WJLA-TV vs. Levin, the plaintiff doctor sued defendant television station, alleging defamation in count 1 and in count 5, alleging that the use of his image without his consent in promotional announcements was a misappropriation of his likeness for advertising and trade purposes. In an example, we see that the doctor has the right to sue due to using an image of himself without his consent. Or another example of this can bring us back to an Among Us game from before. Let's say someone calls a meeting and states that Orange is sus. Sends a picture of Orange, the fruit, to make sure they don't get Orange confused with red. Even though it's not a picture of Orange, the Among Us character, it is still of concerning to the plaintiff, so Orange has the right to sue. 3. The statement made by the defendant was published. The statement must be communicated to a third person, which does not include any of the parties in the action. So basically, the defamatory statement was published. This means the statement was told to someone other than the two parties involved. For example, in the 2002 case of WJLA-TV vs. Levin, the doctor has the image used without his consent in promotional announcements, which was a misappropriation of his likeness for advertising and TV purposes. Since the statement referring to the doctor was published on TV without his consent, he now has the right to sue. Or for another example, let's return us back to our Among Us game. Let's say that Orange believes that Red is sus. then goes on to make an article about Red being sus and publishes it on the space web for everyone to see. Now, Red has one of the 5 rights to sue Orange due to Orange making an article and publishing it about Red without his consent.
Legal element number 4. The defamatory statement must be completely false. It's not defamation if it's truth. An example of this would be in 2004, the U.S. Supreme Court of Virginia case, Union of Needle Trades and Textile versus Jones. The union claimed that Jones's original case did not show that the allegedly defamatory statement was false. The evidence used in the case was a letter from the union official that referred to the union's ability to appoint someone to prevent corruption and financial malpractice. However, it did not imply any actual corruption. As a result, the judgment was reversed in favor of the union. Let's look back at our Among Us crew. White was clearly not dead. Purple's statements were false, therefore defamatory. Legal element number 5. For private persons like your average Joe, the plaintiff must prove that the statement was made negligently and caused actual injury. In an example in the 1974 U.S. Supreme Court in Virginia case, Gertz versus Robert Welch, Incorporated, it was decided that private persons must show that the statement was made negligently and caused injury. This decision was decided on a case where the reporter ran a story about a youth who they claimed was a communist, after being shot by a police officer. The Supreme Court found that the youth was a private person and the private persons are different from public persons, and did not have to prove malice. Remember when Purple made that factual claim that Orange was the imposter and how it was false? Well, Orange was voted off, and has proof floating in the depths of icy space that Purple's claims have caused him actual damage. It's too bad that Orange is light years away from an actual courthouse. He would have had a really good case. For public persons, people who are in the public eye, like public officials, CEOs of major companies, and other famous people, the plaintiff must prove malice by clear and convincing evidence. Damages are presumed if actual malice is proved. An example of this would be the 2005 U.S. Supreme Court case of Virginia, Coleman v. Jordan. The case involved a former mayor who had allegedly been defamed in an ad made by him in a newspaper by a resident. The mayor, as a public official, was required to prove actual malice. Since he was unable to do so, the case was won by the resident. Now let's go back to our Among Us crew. Imagine White is the chief executive on the Among Us ship. Purple has been making all sorts of comments about how White is the imposter after he broke Purple's cover by speaking up telling people he was still alive. Because Purple acted intentionally to cause harm and get White voted off, without any legal justification whatsoever, Purple has acted with malicious intent towards White, who is a public official. White could use this in his case against Purple, but unfortunately, Purple murdered him before he got a chance to reach a court. So what have we learned today? We learned the 5 legal elements required to prove defamation. A statement must be factual and not just an opinion. A statement must be referring or concerning to the plaintiff. A statement must be published, and a statement has to be false. And if it's a private person, they must prove negligence and an actual injury, while public persons must prove malice. Oh, and also, never trust Purple. He's definitely the imposter.